Okay, let's talk about death. Oh,
Yes, we certainly are. So, good day, everybody. I know we are about 3 minutes away from everyone being able to access things. So, Hazel and I have pushed the envelope a little bit since yesterday. We made some notes and wanted to press some questions. And the question that came up was, what happens when you die? And based on Google, we have a scientific rendition, or science being the ones with the answer to this question. We also have another scientific study. This one's a little bit more recent of an article based out of the UK. And then, of course, there is a response being the third one from the top as a Bible answer. So, my dear Hazel, I'm going to position you now in front of everybody that's about to attend. And just to give you a quick rendition, we have one person in attendance right now. And who is that? Allison is here. Allison would like to welcome you here. Hello, Allison.
hello, Alison. Lovely that you could come to be with us today. So I'm just orientating myself with the chat and then we can get going. So, Jeffrey, today we're talking about what happens when we die. And you've got some biblical references, I believe, that we can talk about as well if some of our lovely listeners don't have a question for us. Well, I've had quite a few experiences of people leaving the planet. I prefer to use that phrase rather than die, because most people, while they're walking the planet, are mostly dead, meaning they are living by default. They're not consciously aware of their spirit and their soul. And they live by default. So, leave the dead to the dead, as the Bible tells us, and that is exactly what it means. I think in this day and age, we call them asleep, these people. So in my early days of awakening, I worked as a psychic medium, and part of mediumship is helping people to cross over the bridge of consciousness to the other side. And what death actually means is that the person leaving the planet goes unconscious for a while. So they're oblivious to how they actually made that giant step from living in a body to going back into their soul body and living totally from that level of themselves. But I can tell you that as many people as there are on the planet are as many diverse ways of what happens to someone when they die, when they leave the body. So I'm going to tell you about the experiences that I've had with my family, with my mum, my dad, and my two brothers, when they decided that it was time for them to leave the planet. Now, the most recent one 3 years ago was my mum, bless her. And I'm going to tell you the story of it. So she was quite self-contained. She lived in her own apartment, and she had one of those bands on that she pressed if she was in difficulty. Now, my mother went blind towards the end of her life, and she simply couldn't live by herself in the world anymore. And it was quite a tragic process that my sister and I went through. Anyway, we got a phone call, middle of the night, and when we got there, the paramedics were already there trying to revive her. And I could see that she had left her body, and they were still pumping away with all the equipment and trying to resuscitate her. And I just stood there and I said, stop, just stop. And they stopped. They put her back on the bed, and I just sat on a chair by her. And she was all around me, but I couldn't see her. I felt her. She was a little bit dazed because as she went unconscious, she was confused, just as she was when she was living in the flesh. She was a confused little old lady. And that moment that her heart stopped beating and she stopped breathing, her mind, which is a part of her soul, was still confused. Now, the most important message from this chat is that when people are passing from one level of consciousness to another, as in they go unconscious to leave the body, it is so important to hold a space for them. We call it prayer, but I'm not talking about weeping and wailing and crying all over them and being sad. No, 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 no. They need upliftment, they need joy, and they need love to help them on this journey. So that is why I'm so pleased that this time in our lives, we are all beginning to understand that we must live from joy and we must let grief, sadness, and all of those things be left behind in the old paradigm. But back to my mom's passing. So I was there and I just held the space of love for her. And they put her body into one of those black bags, you know, that we see everywhere. And they took her to the back of the ambulance. And I was there watching. My daughter had arrived by that time. And so we were both holding this beautiful space for my mum because I was pleased for her. I was delighted that she was moving onward from that state that she was in. And my grandmother, her mother, came as the black bag with my mum's body was going into the ambulance. My grandmother came like a shooting star. She literally, her energy was like a shooting star. And she came right up to me, my face, as the grandmother that I knew and loved and still love. And she went to my mother, who was confused and still attached to her body. Oh, it makes me, and they just went. They went across the bridge of consciousness that we call dimensions to heaven. So my mother actually went to the lower realms of the fifth dimension. Now, the beauty of this is my mother quickly gathered everything about her and she recognized that, yeah, she was still alive, but that she was no longer in the body. But my mum was a bit of a control freak.
Which moms aren't, right? Come on.
Right. Well, I don't think I am. Ask my daughter. Well, I learned from my own. Anyway, my mum she was only 4'11". She's a very, very small lady. She only weighed about 5.5 stone, but she was a tiger. She was a demon and she was a control freak. So anyway, on the planet now, there's just my sister and I left. So my mother passed away. And my sister and I, we went to Tenerife for about 2 months. Just shortly after the funeral. And we went to see my mum laid out in the coffin, and my mum said she wanted flowers all around her in the coffin. That's what we did.
Oh God. What do you mean, like put them in the coffin, like on her corpse?
Yeah. I tell you, she wanted, my mum years and years ago had a beautiful, it was called a Persian lamb coat with a big fur collar. And you've got to remember, this was just in like post-war days, and she kept it all her life. She wanted to be buried in that with no clothes on underneath. So that's what we did. I didn't have to lay her out, so that was fine. But anyway, the story goes that anyway, we put all these beautiful flowers around her favourite flowers, as she loved arum lilies. So that's what we did. Anyway, while I was looking at her in the coffin, and she came right up close to me and said, I know I wanted a lot of flowers, but I didn't want you to suffocate me with them. And that was just like my mum, you know, really so funny. Anyway, I want to tell you about the mindset, because everything doesn't leave us. Yes, she passed over and she was able to see with her soul eyes, her limbs and everything. Her soul body obviously was beautifully flexible. She could use her hands and everything again, and she was very sprightly. So all of that disappears. There are no aches and pains, but we still have a very similar mindset, especially if we are really, really attached to controlling people. So my sister and I, we went to Tenerife, and my sister was really quite depressed and quite mentally very, very low. And my mother was always saying to me, you know, look after Debbie, you go and look after and you see to her. Now, bearing in mind, my sister's 53 and I'm 63. And my mum is still trying to control me from beyond the grave. So I'm saying to my mum, just stop it, just stop. I will not have this. You go and see to Debbie. You have a great influence now. If you learn to focus, you can really influence your daughter. You don't have to go through me. I've got my own life. I'm not going to live with Debbie and help her through this time. Blah, 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 blah. Just like mother to daughter.
Yeah, yeah.
And the most wonderful thing after that was about 6 weeks later. And I was really chatting to my mum telepathically to and fro. I was feeling her and sensing her mood and everything. And it was just as though she was in the same room as me. But obviously I couldn't physically touch her. But in my soul, we were together and I saw her and so on and so forth.
Okay. Well,
anyway, I just want to finish this story. Can I just finish?
Yes,
it's important
sorry, my dear.
that people are not much different. So it came about that I was having a session with a client the next day, and they bought one of my books. And I always put a little card in the book. And I got this card out, and I thought, it's not quite right. This doesn't feel right. So I left it for the next day. And I picked the card up again, and the card actually says, and I have it here, Apple Blossom, New Love. Can you see that?
Yes, ma'am.
And my mum's favourite song is and was I'll Be With You in Apple Blossom Time. And this happened in early May, so the apple blossoms were out in England. And she said to me, today we start a new love between us. The old has gone. And I thank you for helping me where I was so resistant when I was on the earth. I needed to keep control so that I didn't lose it. We all understand why people need to control. But that is what happened with my beautiful mum. And not only that, she's with me now and she helps me to understand people, and she helps me she sees the world as the bigger picture that it is, and we're just chatting and with each other. So that's one story of what happens when we die. And I'd like to finish it by saying that my father, my dad, my beloved dad, he died 15 years before my mum. He left the planet. But my mum could not be with him. My father went to the higher spheres, but because my mum was still in that control carry-on, she could not be with my dad because he was on and is on a higher level of consciousness than my mum. But now she's let go of the control and worked through it. They can be together as they choose. So it's so, so important to do the inner work, or at least start the inner work before we leave the body. And it doesn't matter how old you are. You just make a start on looking inward. So Jeff, I just wanted to complete that because that is a whole story, you know, about death, how it happens.
It's a wonderful story because there's multiple layers to what you said. And as a result of the beautiful story that you did share with us, Allison has asked a question. And the question is the whole concept of controlling things and people dying in the new energy. That is the question. Yeah. So that I do believe controlling things and the concept of that and people dying in the new energy. I'm not sure if Allison, if you might be able to expand on what you mean specifically to the new energy. So it will take a couple.
Yeah, does she mean that we've done the inner work and we're coming from peace, love and joy and inner strength? Is that what you mean, Alison?
I'm just going to see if we can. So I've invited Allison to be a speaker. We do have that 30-second delay, so it may take a moment for her to accept or even hear the previous question. One of the things that I just want to quickly address, I'm Orthodox, Greek Orthodox, and one of the things that we've done with our dead is put coins on their eyes. We all have rituals from each cultural background, and that seems to be something fairly common throughout history. Is there anything to that? Where did it come about, or is that?
I don't know, Jeffrey. It's not something that we do in England. I think it is just because people don't like to look at dead eyes staring at them. And I think maybe the money comes from, you know, ancient cultures where they put all the gold and everything, you know, in the tomb with them to help them on their way. I really don't know, but it's a completely human thing to do, really. But I would say, while we're on the subject, that it is much better for the soul leaving to burn their bodies, because as the bodies are burning, and what we know now from mystics throughout all time, because you literally burn off some of that sick energy, because all disease comes from the soul. All comes from the thoughts and the emotions, which is a part of the soul which we take with us. So it is good because the flesh does actually burn some of that off. And personally, you know, makes perfect sense to me. I've seen it myself, and I like the idea that we burn the diseased bodies, because it obviously gets rid of all of that.
So that is something that comes up more often than not. Do we bury our dead? Do we put them in a sarcophagus and then another one with a metal shell on it?
Well, I think that comes from a belief that, you know, I think it's Jehovah's Witnesses, isn't it? They believe that the people are going to literally rise from the dead and use their old body. But, you know, that is just a misunderstanding and a miscommunication. And they did, didn't they? I think they used to, in olden times, bury the dead inside the walls standing up. So when the second trumpet call came,
it was like a door swings open. It's like, well, it's off to life I go.
Yeah. But I think, you know, that is just a misconstrued idea, because now in this age, many of us are going to ascend, go up to that higher level of consciousness without going unconscious, and we're going to take our bodies with us. We are actually transforming our bodies into that refined soul body that we walk about in on those higher planes of reality, because we're still going to have a body. We're still going to have a form and a structure to us. We're not pure spirit. Only God is pure spirit. So, for example, Jeffrey, if you and I both ascended now, say we left our bodies now, we left them behind, but we'd done all the inner work and we'd refined our soul body, and you and I were both in the same spheres, I could touch you and hug you and do all the things that, you know, we ever wanted to do with the senses of touching and smelling and so on. You know, that doesn't go when you're on the same vibration, when you're on the same frequency. It just becomes a problem when, like, you know, talking to you about my parents, my mum, bless her, was on that lower frequency, but my dad could go and visit her, but she couldn't rise up, because you cannot. The thing that happens is, and I've been taken to these spheres, it is literally a force field. It's a force field that prevents us going further. And you try to go further and you just can't, because the force field, you have to match the vibration of the force field. And that is, you know, beautiful. I love it, because that is the epitome of God will not be mocked. You cannot go to those higher vibrations if you aren't cleansed and pure enough within your soul, which is to clean up your act and come from peace, love, and courage. And it's an amazing thing to witness and to experience, you know? So,
where I would love to hear a little bit more depth to as I've asked Allison to maybe expand upon the question, because I wouldn't want you or I to be misinterpreting that and possibly not answering it clear enough. So I'm hoping she can expand on that. But for me, my question is, after your explanation there, is we have the fifth dimension after death, and how you related to your father there. Is there a dimensional point that we reach where we don't, say, reincarnate or re-inhabit a human form?
Yes, yes, it's beyond the 12th dimension. We all beings come through the 12th dimension, and that's the start of having a more dense body. And so as we come through that stargate, if you like, that dimension, we're preparing ourselves to have a more dense form of a body. And so we come from the 12th, all the way down. And that's how now we can be multidimensional, and we can, going forward, switch between the 3rd, 4th, 5th, right up to the 12th dimension. But to go beyond is to be closer to God than that we can ever get. So that would be, when you wouldn't choose to come back to the earth. But yeah, the earth itself, as we know, well, no, there's always going to be a 3rd dimension where people can go, and people who, for example, are, the dead amongst the dead, they are still not conscious that they are spiritual beings. So they are living, most of them, totally from their body consciousness, which has an intelligence, of course it does, and they're living from their gut instincts, of survival issues. So that's really the physical kind of really totally unconscious that you are a God being. So there's always going to be that level of reality for thousands of years to come, because it's going to take a long while in terms of time and space for people to clear everything, because you simply cannot progress with your soul, becoming more and more refined, without doing the work. And you have to do that in order to get to the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th dimension.
So
does that make sense, how I've explained that?
You have made sense. Where I'm just going to jump up on the screen now while you have a quick been chatting for a bit there. So to go over for anyone that is just tuning in, we do have Georgette here, and Allison has been having some computer issues. So thank you for powering through that and getting here. So the question that I proposed to Hazel was, we have 12 dimensions, as she explained, and you can go from the 12th dimension all the way down to the 3rd dimension, and then all the way back up to the 12th dimension. My understanding, based on her explanation, just recanting it, is while we are in a 3rd dimensional state, when we go back and cross over, working our way up to a 12th dimensional state, we're working through peace, love, and courage. Hazel, would that be correct in my statement?
Yes, and compassion and joy. These are the defaults for our divine selves. Yes, we must be those frequencies within us, yes.
So the old saying, what you do on Earth, what we do in our 3rd dimension, will dictate in a way what happens and what dimension we will eventually get to.
Yes, because while we're living our life at this level of density in the flesh, we are building our soul body. We're building our next life, where the vibration that we're actually going to be on. So, and you can see that when I look at people, I see within them exactly what they're building with their thoughts and their emotions, because that's what builds the next body if they're not living from the heart. And I can tell you it's horrendous. People walk about and they look, they've got 2 eyes and a nose and a mouth and all of that, like we all have, but their soul bodies are so distorted and horrendous. And that is the measure of their thoughts and their emotions. Okay, so that is partly the structure of what they're building to inhabit, going forward. And I call that, a lot of them are subhuman, to be perfectly frank. And I've seen many subhumans operating, looking, you know, some of them look lovely, some of, you know, just like we all do. But when you look in and tune into their soul body, you see a whole different story. Likewise, you know, I've also seen people that don't look so attractive in the physical, and when I look into their soul bodies, I think, my God, you're absolutely beautiful. It's tragic that you're doing this to yourself, you know. And you know, even my stepdaughter was one, and she was hugely overweight. She was obese and just drab. And when I saw her soul body, she was this beautiful, golden, feminine energy. And it was just tragic that she couldn't quite tweak that heavy layer within herself. So it works the other way as well, Jeffrey.
So
whatever experience, you know, they're creating. And we must take into account as well, because there are many angles to this, what they have reincarnated to refine within themselves. So, you know, if someone wants to, for example, get a real hands-on humility, which is an extremely difficult quality and trait to really understand and get a handle on, then they might come with all kinds of physical issues, you know, to help them bring forth this humility, which you can't go through the spheres without humility. But humility doesn't mean you're a doormat. It doesn't mean that at all. It means surrendering to the divine will. That's what it means, and only to the divine will. That, to me, is true humility.
Now, one of the things that I'm just going to pop up here again. So what we're doing today was challenging ourselves to answer some common questions. And the first question that we came to was the question of what happens when we die? Now, our initial response was based on what came up on a Google search. Now, on that Google search, we had a scientific response to that question. We have a biblical response from a website, and we've mainly just been addressing sort of the scientific one mixed with the biblical one, mixed with just answering the question on our own terms. So right now I'm going to go back to, I think, the most fun one to start with is what happens when you die, based on lifescience.com. And I'm just going to read a brief snippet of that article. And it says, there's only one group of people who really know what happens when you die: the dead. And since the dead won't be revealing their secrets anytime soon, it's up to scientists to explain what happens when a person dies. I'm just going to elaborate one bit more because I had read that part of the article already to Hazel. And the next part is, death, just like life, is a process, scientists say. The first stage of the process is known as clinical death, which is something that Hazel was answering earlier on. Now, then it goes on to say it lasts from 4 to 6 minutes, beginning when a person stops breathing and the heart stops pumping blood. During this time, there may be enough oxygen in the brain that no permanent brain damage occurs. Other organs, such as the kidneys and eyes, also remain alive through clinical death. Now, since I've elaborated further, I'm just going to finish off this because I can hear Hazel writing. In the second stage of dying, this is known as a biological death. The cells of the body begin to degenerate and the body's organs, including the brain, shut down. Doctors are sometimes able to stall biological death by inducing hypothermia, cooling the body to below its normal temperature. This method can stop the degeneration of cells and has been used to revive cardiac arrest patience. So Hazel, I'm going to tune you in now because I hear your energy just going.
Yeah, I noticed that. I was just writing down what you were saying so I wouldn't lose track of, because you do a really good job, Jeffrey, of keeping me on track because I go all over the place, or I can do. So really what you're describing there is the death of the flesh. But clinical death, biological death's all the same thing. It is just the body winding down and the last of the life force, which is God, leaving the body. So, I've got not much else to say to that. They're not incorporating a soul, which is thoughts and emotions on many levels. They're not including the deep feelings of the heart, which make up the soul. So that's a full stop for me.
Well,
Nothing else to say.
I've got an interesting story to tell about a subject that was across my plate recently. So I was watching on Netflix, The Real Mr. Miyagi. This gentleman was the individual they made the character of Mr. Miyagi in The Karate Kid. During the taping of this documentary, he fell into a coma where neurologically speaking, the doctors said he only has like 5% use of his brain. Like it was just, they basically said he was going to die. Out of nowhere, he comes out of the coma like a snapping of a finger, turns over, looks to everyone in the room and says, "I don't give up that easy," and then goes back into the coma. And he's in the coma now. They're still saying he's going to die, and he's still living and breathing today. He's woken up from the coma and all of this stuff. So to no one's surprise, I've been introduced to near-death experience either on a personal level from family, myself, or other individuals I've worked with on a professional level. I am not surprised to hear something like this happen, but the more and more we expose ourselves to this aspect of things, rather than the one we just read where, oh, I got to cool the body with ice, this is going to preserve me, this is going to keep me alive, or that sort of thing, we're sort of buying into a subculture of existence that we've all grown up to accept and know as being the only way. One of the aspects that Hazel brought forth yesterday during a conversation was the fact that if we're ready, our spirit, our God self is ready to go. It's our time to go, and that's when we die. And nothing's going to stop it. Not a defibrillator. I'm not going to resurrect myself. If I want to be here, I'll be here. My personal story was simply, I was in a case like that. I came back. I chose to walk out of the light and back into this body. And here I am with you today. And I'm telling you that leading up to that experience, everything that Hazel was saying, I could see people's energies. It's almost like I watched someone become Gollum from Lord of the Rings, literally in front of me. I'm walking down the street and I look over, and it was as if they went from like this to like in a physical form, but that they weren't there. So the reality is our three-dimensional world has multiple layers that unless we open our eyes to kind of see them and feel them, we're always going to write them off as something they're entirely not. And that it's a complete misconception. I had no idea up until chatting with Hazel the first time. Like now we're reaching almost 3 weeks. I explained to her, I always have this pain sensation on one side of my body and my jaw. It's like someone's punching me, like I'm getting into a fight and someone's knocking me, but I'm clearly not in a fight. I explained this, and then she went on to explain timelines and such to me. And then I realized more or less my other spirit self in another dimensional timeline was in a fight, and he was kind of a burly man, and I got into a meditative state and could more or less see and feel the imagery around me. And as I'm even saying this story, I can feel certain aspects of my physical body activating, saying, yes, this is true, yes, this is real. One of the things that Hazel passed on to me is how to somehow communicate with that energy that you're feeling in your physical body. So it was maybe a few hours after her and I stopped talking. And the gentleman was still dealing with some physical problems. So I started passing along to him, maybe it's time to start shielding yourself, ducking. And I was even with my eyes closed, passing him along, drop to the ground, punt, like I was trying to teach him how to do martial art defense. I have not since then felt the pain in my jaw. I feel it in different areas, like my arm's going to be grabbed or whatever. So then I quickly kind of twist it and say, this is what you got to do in my head, not out loud, unless you're alone and you want to share that kind of thing. But yeah, so going back to full circle of everything, we have a huge connection. We are connected to God, our spirit self, and a machine's not necessarily going to save you, but we've been led to think it has. So Hazel, we have a question here from Allison to clarify. The concept of controlling others, quote unquote, dying in the new energy, we are learning to control ourselves and no need to control others. Can you see that in the chat? So maybe me reading it is okay. So if you go,
I can't see it.
Okay, I'll pop you up so that you're on the screen. If you go over to the webinar jam studio icon, which is the second one from the bottom.
Got it.
There you go.
Got it. Thank you for reminding me. So Alison, yes, hi. It says, to clarify my question, the concept of controlling others dying in the new energy, we are learning to control ourselves and no need to control others. Well, control has to be a word that we obliterate from our vocabulary, Alison, because we have to surrender. No, we don't have to. If we want to live the best life possible with all of those God qualities, then it is advisable, strongly advisable, to hand over all control to God. So, but what I think you're saying here, we can't control other people dying. Nobody is going to leave their bodies until their higher self, their soul, says this is so. And that's across the board. I would challenge anyone to tell me otherwise, because of the many experiences that I've had in the spirit world, you know, in the other dimensions. That's what I mean by spirit world, spirit with a little s. But no, control must be something we cease to even use the word. It is surrender. And at the moment, the planet and a lot of humans, divine humans, who are choosing ascension and to consciously evolve. Jeffrey, I've lost my train of thought. Help.
It's okay. It's okay. I'm going to jump in here. I kind of felt that. So one thing I'm going to share with everyone right now about choosing to surrender. Last night I was called to go to a local restaurant called Milestones. I wasn't sure why, other than I was there to meet a female. Okay, I wasn't sure who it was, why I was there. I started eating. I was doing some work on my laptop, and all of a sudden a friend of mine from high school that was part of my life during my 20s walked past me. Her and I didn't have a falling out. I just chose not to associate myself with that group of people because it was a part of my life I didn't want. They were still going out partying and doing whatever they're doing, and that wasn't what I wanted to do. Well, that happened about 10 years ago, so a decade ago, when I was 26. She showed up, and every single question about life and what am I doing, like this perplexing question, what does this all mean? Why am I not happy? She's like, I just got a new job. I'm making more money, but I'm no more happy than I was before. And then I continued to ask more questions just to have her open up. And she realized, you know, Jeff, it's really good to see you. What do I do? Like, it sounds like you've got everything on track. And I go, well, it's time for you to kind of surrender and realize that everything around us that you just put forth is something that you need to figure out the answer to. But it's only when you choose to surrender to our environment and your God self and realize, hey, what's next? Well, this morning I sent a little video, a motivational video that I like watching, that pumps me up every day. And I sent her the link at around 6 a.m. because I wake up when it's still dark outside. And she sent me a message and said, I listened to this all the way to work. It's definitely inspired me to have a great day. So to touch on this point, if you haven't fully, say, surrendered to the spiritual aspect of life, start at least motivating yourself to enjoy and embrace every experience that you're having throughout the day. It's one thing to say, oh, I believe in God and stuff, but you're still dragging your feet on the ground because you haven't gone from a more of a fear-based life to the love aspect. Well, you need to pick your socks up kind of deal at some point. You may not get all the answers you want right away from cleansing your system or cleansing your environment and all of that, but you want to get up and go and have a good day and feel that you're producing some results. And you know, my friend Kim is definitely in that direction, and I stay connected to people now. There's a reason why she came back into my life, and everything she told me last night was that, you know, she needs help, like something else to just light that fire, to give her a bit of inspiration. And here I am now connected with her and a few other people that are from my past now in it today. But what I continue to run into when I leave are interactions of people that are willing and interested in surrendering, but they don't really know where to start. And the starting point is essentially where that question is. Where do I start? That's the starting point. From that point forward, you can start embracing everything else, but start there and ask that question. And Hazel brought it up yesterday. Once that yearning starts, it's never going to stop. It's never going to just fade into the darkness. Your awakening has begun. It's now or never. If you do anything but keep yearning for it, you're just going to recycle until you finally break free from that. When's it all going to start? So Hazel, if you could maybe just elaborate again on that yearning aspect, because I feel like I've built it up to the point where we need to hear that a little bit more each day. Like when I started yearning, I was about 18 or 19 years old. And every single time I detracted and just went and partied on the weekend and did anything but continue following my heart, I just ended up right back to that yearning point. And until I fully embraced it, I didn't stop going in a circle.
Well, I would, Jeffrey, use a different words to yearning, because yearning is fully embracing something. It is actually hitting a vibration within you that brings forth that change because you truly mean it. So I would say that when people yearn, change happens instantly. If it doesn't, then you are not fully yearning. You're not fully committed all the way through your body using the chakra system, you know, from your crown to your base, and from the solar plexus, the sacral chakra and the base chakra, that's the human aspect of ourselves. And across the board, you weren't yearning all the way down. And I remember, you know, when I speak to people, they say to me, but I am, and I go deeply into them and I say, you're not. And so we open that up and they see quite clearly, as I'm going through that process with them and explaining it step by step, one small step in front of the other, what they're feeling in that moment that I'm speaking to them, they can see also that they weren't yearning like a drowning man wants fresh air. No, I'm sorry. It's the same when people want to give up smoking or drinking or whatever. They are only going to do it easily when every level of themselves is on board with wanting to do it. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's not a judgment, but let's be very, very clear on what we're talking about. And I yearned to be different than I was. And in that moment, I'd hit a higher vibration. I'd opened a gateway to a higher vibration. And what I want to say to these people who are still very, very much into their human DNA operating through them is that what we hold inside us is the energy that we're feeding. You know, it's what we allow. And it comes out in the tone of our voice. It comes out in the words that we choose to use. And it comes out in our conscience. Now, the conscience is the higher self operating through people that are living by default. And when you get past the point of no return, almost being human, is when you have even numbed down hearing and feeling your conscience, and then you're into sociopath and psychotic behavior. And that is, these people have so numbed down even their conscience, which is part of the spirit, that, you know, nothing is going to stop them doing what they want, virtually. And these people are living from instinct and from that bodily consciousness. I call it subhuman, actually, because when you see their soul bodies, but even that's not a judgment. It's just that they've numbed down through a process, and it usually starts with shame. And then we think, oh, I don't want to feel the shame, so we block it, because we're very, very good at damming up our feelings. Very, very good. I mean, we're experts at it, aren't we? Experts.
Yeah.
So to your friend, you obviously start with people where they're at, but they have got to more than want it. They really have.
Exactly. Like when I first run into people from my past, or just people in public that are in this state, they're looking for guidance. They're looking for answers that they can't seem to find anywhere else. And it's not that they aren't looking, they literally don't see the opportunity anywhere else. And she came to me, like, we came together, I should say, yesterday, and I know full well that we're never going to lose a connection again, because it's about building a community now. And there's an old adage.
Can I just interrupt? It's about serving our souls now. Each of us as individuals, we must serve our souls. And I would say to anyone, who do you serve? Choose, and then go live that choice. If we're serving our souls, then we build the community. It's not possible. I would not consider building a community with someone who's not serving their soul, because it's just, I'm done with that halfway house, if you like. I'm done with it.
I agree. You know, and when I see those people, I'm like, you're there. Commit to yourself, and I will help get you whatever you need answer-wise. But I'm not going to hold your hand. Listen, I'll send you links to watch this video, read this article, because if your questions then start elevating to another level each time, they'll get to the point that you're referring to. But I'm not here in a sense to, there was a post last night that I responded to on Facebook, and my response was, historically speaking, we've tried to force ourselves to do things. Force never has completed anything productively. It's only caused fear, harm, war, confusion. Love is the only thing that can happen, but you cannot force someone to love by telling them they're wrong and how they're loving, and this is the way that things are supposed to be. Love, remember yesterday, has no conditions. It's unconditional, right? So when we force things in the past, it was always like, you need to do this or else. Well, we're in a totally different paradigm now. We're speaking and thinking from the heart. We live from God, nothing else. If we question things or anything outside of that, that's not God or love talking. That is this dimensional world. There's something that we're connected to that is like still lingering. But how did you describe that density where you're still kind of attached to the stickiness, Hazel?
Yeah, well, that's sticky energy, when, for example, when people come to me and they're just angry, for example,
Yes.
and they're just purely angry, that is like a clean energy. It's a dense energy, but it's clean. Now, when people are angry and they're jealous in with that, and they are competitive in with that, and they've got other things going on, and they've said, no, I'm quite happy that my girlfriend, for example, has gone and left me, but really they're not. So they're in a double bind. You know, on the one hand, they're really angry that she has, but they're trying to say to themselves, you know, no, I'm okay about it. That's the stickiness. So you're in a double bind, and it literally looks like, on some people, chewing gum, and on other people it looks like you know, the chrysalis energy of a caterpillar, and it's all sticky, isn't it? Or like some spiders' webs are really sticky and you can't get it off your fingers. It is literally like that. And I want to emphasize literally, and it's so hard to unravel the stickiness of people and what webs we weave. So I want to address Alison. She was saying about her computer, there seems to be issues. Don't worry about it, Alison. With the energies coming in, my computer yesterday switched itself off. And all manner of things going on. When I went to put it back on, you know, on the hard drive, I've got one of those box things, and I pressed the button, I got an electric shock through me, and I knew that just get off the computer, Hazel, just the energies flowing through me and so on. So, you know, that's probably, Alison, a little bit about what's going on with you. And you also say, my love, that serving our soul is surrendering to the higher self source. Yes. Not an easy task, because we need to first of all sort out what is me and what's my soul, you know, because it all flows into each other, really. You know, the soul is an extension of the spirit, and the human personality is an extension of the soul. But like I said, we're so good at masking everything and causing a double bind, and then we get caught in being stuck, which means we've got two conflicting beliefs that are equal, and we can't. You need someone, you need a mentor or someone to help you unravel all of that. It's very, very difficult to, if you can't see energy, it's very difficult. It's very difficult to, you know, because we're not about,
I think it might help with that point. When how do you respond to people that are continually validating their fears?
Well, they're just compounding it. I would just say to them, stop. And I would just say, is that true? But like, give me one of your fears. And it might be, I don't know. What is it? What is a sensible fear?
I'll give you one, because it came to me yesterday. I'm really afraid to be self-employed because I don't know how to do the business side of things. I'm a really good builder. I like to do the hands-on stuff, but I really never thought of running my own business because I'm afraid that I'll screw up the business side of things. And then any more layers that you could think. I'm not good at math. I'm not good at this. I'm not good at blah, 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 blah.
So, I mean, when you're coming into being an entrepreneur or self-employed, which, you know, I applaud you, because that is the beginning of breaking away from the matrix, you know, so you're actually, it's a huge step, and you will find that most people that are on their spiritual trajectory work for themselves. Not all, but a lot of us do, because that is, we've got autonomy over our income and the way we present ourselves through our business. And now in this day and age, businesses are empathic and they are soul aligned, otherwise they're just going to collapse. But the first thing at that level, it's a very, you know, kind of basic level, is do what you love, do what you're good at. And if you want to work for yourself, as you build up, you outsource the things that you find difficult, because we're not all good at everything. And we are not meant to be good at everything, because it, at a human level, teaches us that we need each other, that we are all one. You know, take you and I, Jeffrey. I mean, this technical side, I've been wanting to do Hangouts for over 2 years. And I already had this webinar jam program, but to get my head around it, you know, I truly prayed for someone to come into my life who could handle all the technical side and yet be on the same frequency as me. And up you popped.
I'm just going to pop up quickly because I need to let some people know too. For a period of 1 year, I've been on this journey, becoming self-employed, March of 2015. During that time, I refused to do anything that wasn't in good nature. So I helped my buddy with a Chinese herb business, and we built that up really well. And I always knew I wanted more. I did not want to be under an umbrella of another person that I may not, if I don't want to go to work, or say I have another option, I want to go, whatever, grocery shopping. That part played a role, but I still didn't really know why it did. So I kept trying to go from one to the next to the next. And everything that happened was leading me up to meeting Hazel. I wanted to always inspire and lead by example, because I worked in mental health before. I was a source of inspiration to my clients back then. And everyone kept saying, Jeff, be a coach, be a this, be a that. And I go, well, I'm not quite ready yet. I need to meet somebody that I can gain knowledge from. Everything that I learned from March of 2015 up to meeting Hazel was preparing me to run these webinars and establish digital content online. And then when I met her, she was like the catalyst almost in unlocking the last gate that I needed to truly say, okay, you are who you are who you think you are, and all those years of your life, everything that's led up to this point is true.
I know, even to the way, Jeffrey, you're so eloquent, and you shared with me that you were, I don't know if you were a DJ or a broadcaster or something in your early, years, but whatever, but you are very, very good. I want to go back to Alison's question where
yes.
She says, serving our soul is surrendering to the higher self source. Yes, but you have to know the qualities of the higher self, and those qualities that we are surrendering to are peace, love, courage, joy, strength. So this is what we're surrendering to. So when we're annoyed, for example, at the neighbor or whatever, or the noise outside, we surrender to the peace within. And that's what that means, to surrender to the higher self source. It doesn't mean go inward and meditate and wait for the gold light to come in. It means no, surrender to the qualities, those higher traits. So whatever's going on in the world, who do you serve? Your soul or the mayhem in the world? Do you add to it by being a violent protester? No, I choose to surrender to my soul and come to peace. That is the surrender I'm talking about. And we don't think it, we have to be it. So we practice and we rinse and repeat. Being peace, love, and courage. When I walk into my village, I'm walking along, and if I feel that I need to pull myself up, back into my higher self, if I feel myself flagging, which I do, I just go along saying, okay, be peace. So for about 10 steps, I'm being peace. Now be love. Now be courage. And before I know it, I'm zippity-doo-dah, skipping along to the shop.
That is great.
So, and that's what it means to live it. Come on, people, we're on the ground running. We have so much to do to help humanity. And I'm not just talking about skipping along, to my little shop. I'm talking about helping people that are working in factories for a slave wage. This, it's got to stop. We have got to stop supporting slaves that make these clothes that we buy so cheap. We have got to start saying no to this. And if we are employing our own people, like a cleaner or whatever, coming to our home, and they're on the minimum wage, we have to say no to that. And we have to be prepared to put our money where our mouth is and say, no, I'm giving you £20, £30 because you cannot live on slave wages, because they can't. And you know what the double bind is there? Not with governments, but people in the street. They look down on these people. They truly do. Many of them look down on people that are on minimum wage. And if you are one of them, and I mean, yeah, you out there, all of you listening, please look at that within yourself and don't try and beat somebody down to the cheapest price that you can get. Make sure that what you are willing to pay is above a minimum wage. This is what I mean by change. This is the change.
I want to push that thought, because it's not just the people in a less developed world. I live in Canada. Our minimum wage in Ontario is $11 an hour. And I'm going to break down the numbers to you. You spend 8 hours of your day at that job making $11 an hour. The likelihood of you having a car to get to work one way, which will most likely be 1 hour, so that you're up to 9 hours. Then you need an hour to come home. So now you're up to 10 hours of your day is just dedicated to making $11 an hour. You then come home, and in that 24-hour period of time, you still are supposed to sleep for, let's say, 7 hours. So 17 hours. So somewhere you have 7 hours to enjoy your life. And it's usually before you're leaving to work to spend that 1 hour to get there. So then there's another hour, and then another hour just to get settled. So now you're up to 6 hours of personal time to enjoy this $11 an hour and some free time. So the change is not just somewhere else. It's relevant across the board, because that person who's making $11 an hour here, also, if they're someone like myself who's single, you have to pay anywhere between $950 to over $1,000 to live in a building that doesn't have bed bugs or cockroaches or anything. So that's the dilemma we're seeing across the border.
But I'm not addressing those people though, Jeffrey. I'm addressing the people that are in a position to share what they have, which is living from the heart, which is surrendering to the soul. People that are in a position to say, no, I'm paying you more. These are the people that need to be addressed, because, even, in England, across the board, as you say, it's all around the world, not just in third world countries. We've got a lot of Eastern Europeans here, and they, in order to just get bread and butter, they are cutting what they're prepared to work for. But my message is to the people that give them work. Give them what they need to live on. Because, the governments are doing it, but so are we, the people on the ground. We make up the government. Governments are on the flotsam of the consciousness of the people that make up the countries. And I'll be interested to watch the elections going on in the United States, with Trump, with Clinton, and with Bernie Sanders. What is the mass consciousness of the American people going to show us that they are? Or like in England, when we have our political campaigns going on, and then they say, oh, only 40% of the people turned out. But the governments ride on the flotsam of the consciousness of the country, whether most of the people have a victim consciousness and they're too afraid to stand up for themselves, i.e., and that will mean they lose what they've got. But I'm not addressing the governments. I'm addressing the people, the middle classes. That's who I'm addressing, really. And, let's get that message out there.
The message, before you answer, Alison, the one thing that I take away is just stop taking advantage of other people that are willing to do whatever it takes for you. That person that's willing to do whatever it takes, I'll hire you. I'll take you in, because I know you want more than what you're giving away for basically nothing. You're willing, and And that's why we have all the crime, because people have to steal to live, and they truly do. And if I was in that position and I had young children, I would do the same. So I'm not addressing these people, although, we're all connected. And Alison says here, I see the extremely wealthy as being hoarders. Yes, extremely wealthy people are. They have the same belief system as someone who is extremely poor. They're both opposite ends of the scale. They're both wanting
to use that money or lack of money to control. You know, you have some street people who are very streetwise, and they will use their position to manipulate and get something. We all know those people, and they're no different to the really wealthy who manipulate people to get what they want. Can you see what I'm saying? It's nothing to do with the money. And I know wealthy people, extremely wealthy people, who are afraid to spend tuppence, you know, and they live miserable lives. So it's not really about the money, it's about the traits within that person, the limiting beliefs. So it's slightly different to what we were talking about earlier with, you know, let's all as humanitarians pay a decent
the summary that
amount.
I have something I got to say here. The summary of life is this: we are humanitarians, as Hazel has indicated there. We have to live from the heart, not from fear, not from our wallet, not to see how much I can get from somebody else or how much they can do for me. If you just simply live from here, every decision that you make, every response to things, everything you do, it is a trickle effect. How many times I went out this morning, I went from a coffee shop to a gas station, to another coffee shop, back to my house. Every single person I interacted with, I stopped and engaged with, had a conversation, made their day, in a sense, interactive with me, not just serving me a coffee or handing me whatever. They're a person just like me. They are on another side of a counter, but that's just a piece of wood. Hey, how's it going? How's your day? Don't stop there. Keep going. It's a foggy day outside. I go, has the fog lifted behind me? Like, what's your interpretation of this kind of deal? And then, you know, the conversation starts. We're now engaging. We're exchanging energy. The gentleman that I first went, he looked like this. The moment I started, his eyes opened up and he started uplifting, like, geez, the day doesn't have to be foggy all the time, in a literal sense or in, you know, figurative sense. So you just start that one effect. Who knows how many other people were in the coffee shop that just felt my energy, just being alive and happy. And then when I went outside, there was a gentleman who was pulling a cart of stuff out of his burger shop. I saw that the door needed to be held open. I held the door open. He looked over at me like I was, who the hell is this guy? And I go, but you need a hand here? Let me help. And
yeah, it's called being friendly, isn't it? And but the thing is as well, Jeffrey, when you look at people in the eye, and when you've become your divine human self and you're looking people in the eye and smiling, you are transmitting the God force to them. And they feel it and they know it. So it is important, as you say, to engage, look at them with those smiling eyes, feel, express, connect. That should be the mantra of every one of us.
What was that again? I'm going to write that down because I'm going to do something with that.
Feel yourself and the other person, express how you're feeling, and then it brings connection. You know, we start with ourselves with that. We feel how we're feeling. If we can't connect that to our voice, then seek help with someone who can help you connect your feelings to your voice so that you express how you are feeling within yourself. And then you've made a connection within yourself. And then you go out into the world and do that with other people. Feel, express, connect. And we lift each other up. And that is God through us. Through my eyes, God lifts many, many people up. And that is humility. I don't say, oh, Hazel went out and I lifted this person up and I cheered this person up. No, God flowed through my eyes and lifted one of his children up. Comfort my people. That's what God first said to me. Comfort my people. And that's how you begin to know that we are all God. We are all God. God looks at other people through my eyes, and I've reached that level where I know that and I feel it. And there are some people that I connect with and they know it. And between us, God is talking to God. meets himself through two human bodies, what it means to be one. God meets himself, itself, whatever it doesn't matter, semantics is not important. When I talk to Jeffrey and I look into his eyes, we've never met, but I say to him, look at my eyes in the camera. That is God meeting himself through him. How wonderful is that? I mean, it just fills my heart with joy. And that's what we do when we're with that, whoever it is, And as you say, Alison, extremely wealthy people are miserable as sin, some of them, but others,
not all
wealthy people... Not all of them, no. A lot of wealthy people do a lot of good.
If I could meet Richard Branson, I would love to do something as bold as his daughter one day said, I want to swim from one of our islands to another. Do you want to come? And he said, yeah. He's not a trained swimmer. She was. And he went and did it. This guy has no business being where he is in a monetary sense, swimming in the middle of the ocean, without much safety, but hey, I'm going to do it. Why not? So that's the attitude to live with, where money doesn't dictate what I can or can't do.
Yes,
I'm going to do anything, whatever. I'm going to green light that. Hey, I'm afraid of sharks. Me, I'm not going to deny it. I'm a little afraid of them. You can do things to me that I can't do to them. Okay?
I love that. Me, I'm afraid of sharks. I'm not going to deny it.
Well, I'm gonna say, I don't put myself in direct danger, but hey, I'm not about to do what he did, so I commend that spirit.
It's never about the money, but money is another show, another day, Jeffrey.
Yes.
Okay.
The point is, live with love, and I just want to summarize because. We've been going on for about an hour and 10 minutes now, and I know everyone. Actually, we have something here. Georgette just said, "I feel your words, Hazel."
Yeah, bless her. I know Georgette well. In fact, I'm speaking to her later on this evening. So, hello, darling. I'll see you later.
Did you want to do one brief little the Bible site on what has to do with death, or do you want to just call it a day for now with us?
Well, I'm okay for another 10 minutes or so, or we could just do the biblical aspects of death in another show tomorrow.
Yes.
What do you think? What do you think?
I think we should wrap it up a bit on this lovely high note and not go back to what happens when you die. Not that it's a bad thing, but...
No, it was a good thing what happens when we die. It's the ultimate holiday when we die, and it's free.
Yes, everything in life is free, I'll tell you.
Well, love is freedom, actually. When you were saying everyone, be the love, but we need to teach people how to love. We need to teach people how to think, how to love, how to be,
And that's what, when I was sharing my question with my friend from yesterday I ran into, and even my new friend who lives below me, he happened to be there too. So I'm doing a little bit of a testament in milestones, and they're both sitting there listening and then engaging. And I'm like, guys, you're there. You're right there. You just ask yourself a better question. That's it.
The questions are important. Yeah. But I often say to people in my sessions with them, because they need to know when they're hitting that vibration, we're going through, be peace, love and courage and joy and everything else. And then they think that. Then I said, you're not in joy, you're in mindfulness. That's a human thing. Come on. And that's the beauty, and suddenly the pair of us are in joy. And I say, that's it. Now let that flow through your body. Because a lot of people, they just let it only go down to their neck. It's true. They just let it go down to their neck. But of course, the whole body has to be involved. Anyway, enough, my darling. Shall we say cheerio and...
We'll bid you adieu.
God bless you. Yeah.
So everyone, I just want to thank you along with Hazel for looking this way and sharing this time with us. For all of you who are able to stick around and exchange this energy with us, we're very thankful for that. So have a beautiful day. Hazel?
Yes, have a beautiful day. Thank you for showing up, Reid. Yes, free holidays in the making when you're ready to leave the planet. Of course, course you win one on the lottery.
Oh, God.
Okay, thank you, Alison. Thank you, Georgette. Thank you, Reed. And thank you, Jeffrey, and anyone else that is listening in the future.
In the future. Goodwill and God bless. Over
Yeah.
and
Bye-bye.
out.